Hello and welcome to another episode of Citadel Guard Adventures. This is Beriathan of the Citadel Guard of Gondor. We are back at the entrance of Sarch Vorn, and I think this will be the last episode on our Before the Shadow playthrough. We really have small few things to take care of, but I think we will be able to do them all today. But let's see how it goes. So, first of all, we need to actually enter Sarch Vorn. We are looking for Luilloth, but also for the Graveyard, and it seems both of them are inside this place, so let's go.
Before the fall of Cardamom, in the aftermath of the war with Angmar and the great plague that followed, countless dead were laid to rest in mass burials among the stones of a ruined temple of the Edain. Its name, all forgotten, it came to be known as Sarch Vorn, the Black Grave. And those centuries of abandonment, none save the most unwary or foolhardy ever dared approach it. But now, the Witch King of Angmar has returned to rouse the Barrow wights from their slumber and summon forth an ancient evil thought banished long ago, the Grey Fear.
Alright, so that's all that we had already discovered about this place. As you see here, we have unlocked some of the deeds. Well, about this instance, the meta deed, the Slayer deed, 300 of them might take a while, and the 3 tiers. None of those deeds will advance in here, except I think the Slayer deeds, because we are running the solo version. But that will not stop us from exploring this place. Now, we can summon Gorwyn as an assistant, a helpful NPC that will, help us in fighting the enemies in here. Oh my god. Yeah, I had something on my desk, sorry. She will help us fight the enemies in here, because this is a 6-man instance. And we, of course, wouldn't be able to do this on our own without Gorwyn's help, without all the buffs that she gives us. I mean, we might be able to do the full group version if we run this at level 20, which is the minimum level, and if we are a little patient with it. If we, for example, were to run in blue line and then run this at a lower level, I think we might be able to complete this on our own without the aid of Gorwyn. But as I said, that sounds really time consuming. And, well, it's an extra challenge, but it's not one I think we really need right now. So yeah, let us just focus on the solo version. On the group version, as far as I remember, you don't get Gorwyn, not even as an NPC, which is something that I found really odd, because without Gorwyn, I don't understand how the story in here could finish. And that's one of the reasons why I think I'd rather run the solo version today. With a din of splintering bones and branches, a terrible creature awakens. Vladak. See, this guy in here is sort of a bog lurker, a white bog lurker somehow. He's really not that bad. He does summon some ads, but he's really not that tough. Right, you have defeated Vladak. We have access to the chest, the solo version. Just currency. It's a shame there is no scaling gear in here. Maybe on the second boss. At least on level cap, the second boss has gear for Wardens. So maybe they made that gear scalable and we'll be able to get some today, but not holding my breath for that. Let's see how many of these guys we can actually pull. Let's be a little risky. I don't think will be such a big deal if we were to die in here. We are doing just fine, by the way. Can you please die? Ah, but yes, Gorwyn. Yeah, she will get stuck trying to fight some enemies. And we need Gorwyn for the second boss. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to complete that fight on our own. There we go. Oh, evaded. What a shame. Can you please come here? Missing this guy. And well, some of these dead lights maybe. Yeah, there they come. There we go, and here we are at the second boss. You can already see Luilloth and Astoryn. To your horror,
brave to have made it this far. But Sarch Vorn will not be a part of your story. It will be the end.
So yeah, to your horror you have found Luilloth, but her remains have been desecrated by the Great Fear. And the remains of Luilloth have been animated by a fell spirit. You gotta actually fight Astoryn and Luilloth herself.
Finally.
Freed of the control of the Great Fear, Luilloth's remains return to rest. What do you have to say about that, Corwin?
Sorrow lies heavy upon this land.
Alas, for Luilloth. I cannot say for certain, but I think she collapsed these tunnels herself, almost as if to trap the Great Fear within Sarch Vorn. And poor Astoryn. So loyal was he that even then he did not abandon Luilloth. From her wounds, I suspect that she was killed when the tunnels collapsed. That is my hope, at least, for it would be a preferable fate to any other she might have found in Sarch Vorn. Better that than to be tormented by the Great Fear until she died of starvation or met some other sorrowful end. But her remains do not appear to have decayed as any others would, and that knowledge brings many unpleasant thoughts to my mind. Either Sarch Vorn was so well sealed when its tunnels collapsed that she was preserved, or the Great Fear took hold of her remains in the same manner as those of Prince Meneldir. So many were the horrors visited upon her family. It can scarcely be believed. We must put an end to the Great Fear, my friend, once and for all. Please tell me we got something cool in here, some good loot, please. Oh! Yeah, we got the shield! Awesome, so glad to see that this shield does indeed scales. Is this better than the one we have? Critical defense, vitality, lock rating, agility, physical mastery, critical rating, maybe. Maybe, let's try the shield. Maybe. So. What comes next? You can see already what comes next, right? In the darkest depths of Sarch Vorn, you discover Rhiangar in the guise of Prince Meneldir. Rhiangar, of course, being Sindarin for Great Fear, or Mustafir. I would need to check the construction of the word, but well, you get the idea, right? So here he is.
At last you arrive. See you now the fate that awaits those who defy me. Once I served the Ordainer, but no longer. I forsake my master of old, he who abandoned me to the enemy. He who left me broken and without form. In his kindness, the Witch King of Angmar has granted me his power. For too long I slumbered, all but forgotten by the men of Cardolan. In time they will all remember me, and the tales of old shall strike fear into their hearts. In the shadows of Angmar, a vast kingdom of the dead shall flourish. And there, I will sit in judgment evermore. The kingdom of the dead awaits you.
Gotta say, I really enjoyed the name drop there, the Shadows of Angmar thing. It shows the devs found many different ways to tie this with the storylines already created. That I really admire that. Now you see, first of all, Rhiangar has a corruption you need to remove, otherwise he will reflect a lot of damage and could potentially kill you. After a while, he would also completed the Slayer Advanced. Amazing, loyalty level 3. He would leave these spirits, and if you let those spirits reach him, he will be healed. And he has the reflect again. And here come the spirits again.
I will not abandon.
The Zelda version really is not that complex by all means. And the only thing... Oh, level 31. Awesome. The only thing that could potentially get you here, I think, is the reflect. If you don't know what corruptions are and reflects are, that might take you by surprise. And you might need to slow down a little bit until you figure it out. But other than that, it's quite simple.
Enough! You shall be mine!
Here you can see the Great Fear himself. Itself, whatever this is. We will discuss his backstory in just a moment, as soon as we are done with this. On the second phase, he will summon wights. You ideally also want to take care of the wights. Seems he is immune to damage unless you do.
I will feast upon
And that was it.
What is this? No, my lord, you cannot summon me. No!
You had defeated Rhiangar, the Great Fear. There he goes. Completed the solo and duo versions of this. And you have banished the Great Fear. So let's see first of all what we got here. Broken Grave Bracelet of Agility. You might have some use for that. Let me take it and I level check in just a moment. We also completed a Death Slayer in Cardolan Advanced, 5 LOTRO points, some extra reputation, and well, half the Slayer deeds of Cardolan done. We are missing the Orc Slayer, half Orc Slayer, and the Goblin Slayer, which will take a while. 5 LOTRO points. What else comes in here?
Must not falter.
Alright, before we proceed with this quest, I guess we can take this moment to talk a little bit about the Great Fear, Rhiangar, and his backstory. So, not entirely sure where all this information was found in-game. To be honest with you, I read this on the wiki online. The LOTRO team has to come up with their own names for many different things because they are not found in the Lord of the Rings, but they still need or want to make use of them. One of such occasions is the Ordainer that we saw in here. So once again, I'm not sure where this was exactly discerned, or if you need to actually dig into some of the other deeds or whatever, but the Ordainer is a Mandos, one of the Valar. And Rhiangar was a Maya that was under his service. But much like Sauron, he got corrupted and he tried to gain power of his own and subjugate the land. And what we saw just here, we weren't the ones who defeated the Great Fear. It was actually Mandos who called him back in a way back to his halls and banished the spirit from Middle-earth and leaving Lord Amandir's corpse free at long last. How much longer will this corpse last is anyone's guess at this point, and that's a little bit disturbing to think about, but at least he now has the rest he deserves. So now, if you know where you can exactly find the confirmation that the Ordainer is Mandos, I would very much appreciate that, because again, I have only read about that online, but I haven't found the evidence myself, and I have all the reasons to believe what the wiki says. Those guys are pretty thorough, but I would still like to see that for myself. Anyway, I have also forgotten, when we hit level 30, we got this friend for a master, and Daisy Appledore will have another quest for us. The orders attached here are of great importance if you find that you have time to share. I would ask that you read them and come quickly to Bree. So we have another class quest that we haven't done. We maybe should get to that today if we have the time. A report to me in the Bree jail, sure. But before we continue, well, now it's the time to advance the quest with Corwin.
Our resolve must not falter.
Is the Great Fear truly gone? Is it banished from Cardolan evermore? If the stories of old are true, speak true, the Great Fear may yet return with the passing of the years. Perhaps all we can do is remain vigilant and pray that it never returns, neither in the guise of Prince Meneldir nor any other. Nay, I must believe that it is gone, Beriathan. We have won this victory for Cardolan, for Meneldir. As Gorwyn speaks, a sound echoes through the halls of Sarch Vorn. Did you hear that, my friend? It sounds like it came from the chamber where we discovered Luilloth. I don't know about you, but I will not leave this place while the dead still roam its halls. Let us find out what made that sound. So we trace back our steps. And look who we have here. To your surprise and relief, Goldberry has come to Sarch Vorn. And this is the only time we'll get to see her in this place, because even if you repeat the instance, this portion for the quest will not happen again. You will not be able to see Goldberry again. So yeah, let's take up pictures of this, some pictures while we can. Now do tell us, what brings you here, Goldberry?
What a joy it is to see you well, dear friend.
Thank you very much. Your protection was indeed helpful. You have triumphed over the Great Fear, have you not? If you had not, I do not believe I would have found my way into this old barrow unhindered. Indeed, the shadow upon this place has lifted, but one matter remains unfinished.
When you and I spoke of Luilloth, an old memory came to my mind. Long ago, when Luilloth came to me seeking counsel against the Grey Fear, she wore a brooch set with blue stones upon her breast. And this very day, by some curiosity of fate, my Tom brought me a gift, a brooch from Othrongroth, the Great Barrow. I could scarcely believe it, but it was no other. How it found its way into the Great Barrow is not known to me. But perhaps Luilloth sought there some other defense against the Grey Fear. But now the Grey Fear is no more, cast back to the halls of the Ordainer, and so I have come to return the brooch to its rightful owner. Rest well, dear Luilloth.
Alrighty, so you remember I told you
It was always Tom's color after all.
blue was always Tom's colors after all. Yeah, that's what I said a few episodes ago, but you remember I also said the game had one more Easter egg in store for us, and I had thought there was nothing else the game could use in those early chapters of the story as references in their own instances, but I am glad I was proven wrong. We have this brooch that Tom has given Goldberry, and it turns out belonged to Luilloth. We're going to talk about that brooch in just a moment, but I don't want to be kicked out of the instance.
It is over, my friend. May Meneldir and so many others at last find peace.
Is that the river daughter of whom you spoke? Even in so dark a place, I feel a lightness upon my heart in her presence. But, truth be told, I do not wish to remain here any longer than we must. The Grey Fear is no more, but that does not erase the hurt he has brought upon us or any of the peoples of Cardolan. I trust Rhiangar will wish to hear of this. I will escort you to Herne, but I am afraid our paths must diverge after we arrive. I am a Dunedain after all, and my duty is to my kin. Far too many troubles have come to Cardolan of late, and it shall be our task to set them right. Nevertheless, I cannot thank you enough for what you have done for us, and for Meneldir. Alright, we have already taken the screenshots I wanted, so we can continue the quest. And be taken back to Herne. Stay in one place.
And so many others at last find peace.
There we go. So as I have said, this Easter egg blew my mind because I didn't expect this to happen at all. But it's the dev's job to find things they have not used yet and be able to fit them in the story somehow. You will remember when Tom rescues the hobbits in chapter 8? Yeah, in chapter 8. Among the many things he recovers from the Barrows, he takes the brooch. And he promises to take that brooch to Goldberry. And then we have seen the end of that open thread that I don't think anybody was asking about. And even if you were curious about that, it was not a big deal. But we have the answer in here now. It was Luilloth's brooch that somehow found its way to Othrongroth. And once again, this blew my mind because it's very reasonable. That's the true nature of the brooch. Nothing in the books states otherwise, so it's a very clever way to tie this entire questline to something familiar from the source material. But also, and as I have said before, I didn't expect any other Easter egg from the books from this questline. And once again, I am glad to be proven so wrong about that. One of my favorite Easter eggs in the entire region, actually. And this has also given us a couple of extra clues as to everything else. First of all, Goldberry mentioned the Grey Fear going back to the halls of the Ordainer, so I think this is as good a confirmation as we can get that the Ordainer is Mandos, is the only Vala that is mentioned to have its own halls. So I guess this is where everyone else is saying that the Ordainer is indeed Mandos. And it seems feasible for me as well. It's a really little detail in there, but just enough so that the people who have read the Silmarillion will know about it. And on the second hand, we have also an official confirmation that this same day is the exact same day when Tom rescues the hobbits from the Great Barrow, and that is one of the movies that is played, I think, halfway through or towards the end of Book 1 of Shadows of Angmar, the original Shadows of Angmar storyline. So this actually makes me reconsider how exactly are these stories supposed to connect? At which point does Before the Shadow lead into Shadows of Angmar? Because we have discussed this many times already. You can just go from Book 3 of Before the Shadow to Book 4 of Shadows of Angmar. But when I did that, I was missing something from the previous books. So I would love to find a way of connecting Before the Shadow to one of the earlier books of Shadows of Angmar, so that Before the Shadow leads not to Book 4, but to a previous one. But with this, that Goldberry has just said, that this is the same day that Tom rescues the hobbits, that makes that connection a little bit trickier than I remembered. So I will need to think about that a little bit more. But now, let us go to Rhiangar here and finish the quests that we have.
The grave fear is no more.
You return! Glad am I to see you, my friend. You tell her of your deeds. The tale you bring chills me to my very bones. I knew things were dire, but never did I imagine such a creature with so much history. You not only saved my homeland, you also found justice for Luilloth and her family. May this unholy cycle of grief be ended. Okay, and this has also given us the chest piece. Yeah, for that we were discussing earlier. So let's take the medium armor. Yeah. All right, we completed the quest. We got the armor, some extra virtue XP. Loyalty is now level 5. That's great. Some morale pots. Okay, not a big deal.
What have you got there?
Where did you? You tell her of the skeleton you found near Sarch Vorn. But this was my mother's necklace. She is silent for a time, her hand closing around the tarnished necklace. Then she looks up at you with a sad smile. Thank you. I suppose knowing what happened means that I can close the door to my heart that I left open, hoping she would one day return. I think I always knew, though, that she would not. And I think this would be the very last quest in Cardolan.
What you have found at Sarch Vorn brought me no joy, but it did provide some peace.
Please, tell my father what you found there as well. He deserves to know that she did not abandon us on purpose. Father is sitting by the door. He apparently helped himself to the stew while we were gone, and there is none left. She chuckled softly, shaking her head.
You again, eh? What mischief have you and my daughter been up to?
You tell him of Sarch Vorn, Luilloth, and the Grave Fear, then you tell him of the weather skeleton. He is silent for a very long time. Her necklace? So, she did not leave us after all. It was an accident? He sighs deeply. You and Rhiangar did all of that, and you helped to cook my favorite stew as well. I am afraid that I have been unkind to you, Warden. For so many years, anger has been the only thing I have known. But today you brought hope. You and Rhiangar have shown that history is important, but that dwelling on the past is not what is needed. Using what we learn from our history here in the present is what is important. That and the people we have. Luilloth lost her life to avenge her family and keep Cardolan safe, as did my wife. You and my daughter followed in their footsteps, and yet surpassed what they were able to do. Rhiangar was never chasing some silly dream, nor was her mother. They both knew there was danger, and they took action to meet it. I am sorry, ungrateful. You will always be welcome here in Herne and in our home. I thank you. Alright, so that was it. Truly, that was the end for all the quest lines in Cardolan. The only thing we're missing now is hitting level 32 to be able to do the last chapter of Before the Shadow Volume 3. So we just need 34,000 XP for that. I think if I do some tasks and maybe some missions right here by the stable, I should be able to hit level 32. If not, then I will need to look for something else. But since none of that is actually part of the actual storyline, I think I'm gonna do that off camera, and I'll be back with you as soon as I hit level 32 so that we can witness the end of the storyline and answer the questions that are still lingering. So yeah, I'm gonna cut that in there, and then we'll find the answers to those questions. When will I tie in Before the Shadow with the original Shadows of Angmar, and what kind of headcanon do I have for all this? I will need to think about that a little bit more, and I would also love to do the math and see how much XP did we get thanks to all our XP items, and do the math at which point will we be standing right now if we hadn't used any of that. That would have made the grind much worse. We still need some grinding to do, but not as much. And I hope I can get to level 32 quite easily so that we can jump to the end of this storyline really quick. So I'll be back in just a sec. Alright, hitting level 32 was actually not that hard. Yeah, just a couple missions and we were able to do it. So when you hit level 32, you will get, first of all, a short text saying... Oh god. Your adventures have made you stronger and even more willing to help those in need, and with that we can now talk to Candaith at his camp near the base of Weathertop, but most important, we have also gained Wall of Steel, awesome, Adroit Maneuver, not as awesome, ranged versions of those two gambits, that's great, the Master in Estaldine, also helpful, and that's basically it. Now that we are level 32, we can indeed talk to Candaith and advance the quest. So that's what I'm gonna do. I know, we actually need to just talk to this guy. We're gonna take the swift travel to Caranost. Should we use our mithril coins for a swift port to the Forsaken Inn? Doesn't seem worth it. It's just a short ride anyway. We can do that. And from here, just take our horsey, Trustilling Bod, and from here we can easily reach the Lonelands by Minas Ithil, and then the Forsaken Inn and the summit of Weathertop. And that's gonna be basically it. Oh, I don't have any more slots on my other bar. Interesting. Anyway, let us write now. What are we missing in the Cardolan now? Well, I triggered this deed while doing missions, not a big deal. And here in Eriador, Still have plenty of things to do. We gotta complete the Treasure of Cardolan. We were really close, but not quite. Explorer of Swampfleet, a little less so. We're missing 4 treasures in Cardolan, 8 treasures in Swampfleet, and 3 items for the Dwellers deed. And as far as layer deeds go, Brigand Layer in Swampfleet, Goblin Slayer of Cardolan, Half-Orc Slayer of Cardolan, the Trophy Hunter of Cardolan 4 out of 9, Trophy Hunter of Swampfleet 1 out of 6, Woodok Slayer of Swampfleet, oh, we were so close, and Work Slayer of Swampfleet, not quite. So yeah, we are still missing a few things in Swampfleet and Cardolan, not a big deal by any means, but enough to keep our hands occupied should we decide to continue doing that. But as I said, we're gonna write to Candaith now and see the end of today's, not only today's episode, but the Before the Shadow playthrough overall. It's kinda mind-blowing. We did this in just 32 episodes. Really surprising, for me at least. Not quite what I expected out of this. But once again, it does check out. It took roughly the same amount of time it took us to complete the first 3 books of Shadows of Angmar, and roughly the same amount of time it took us to get to Rivendell. In the original Shadows of Angmar playthrough, I got to Rivendell at the end of episode 28, around the 47 minutes and 23 seconds mark. And now this is gonna happen towards the end of episode 27 of Before the Shadow. So things didn't align as perfectly as I had hoped, but still close enough. With the idea that if you were to jump from the end of today's playthrough, if you were to jump from the end of Before the Shadow to Shadows of Angmar, then you will jump from the end of episode 27 to the end of episode 28. So you are kind of missing an episode in there if you are keeping count. But it's not a big of a deal. Not that big of a deal anyway. And other than that, yeah, it was roughly the same amount of time. I am still owing you the math of the XP. I'm still very curious about that. I just need to take a moment, a couple minutes to do that. So maybe by the end of this quest, I'll have the time of giving you those numbers. And that will also give me some extra time to think about how would I want to run the headcanon for tying up these 2 storylines. At some point, that will need to be answered as well. What other recipes do we have in here? A disease spot. Not the best, not the worst. What else? Almost there. Awesome. We are. A long time coming, but here we are. The Great East Road has seen much more trouble than usual in recent days. What brings you to the base of Weathertop? You briefly explained that you were sent by Halbarad to warn of increasing dangers in the wild and that a new shadow rises in the realm of Angmar. Candaith nods. I have heard rumors that this might be so from others of my kin that have passed this way, and I have seen evils enough with my own eyes not to disbelieve it. Immediately jumps to my attention, this dialogue with Candaith doesn't rule out the possibility of you doing book 2. Like, going back to my initial idea of going from the end of Before the Shadow to book 1 of Shadows of Angmar and then doing all the first 3 books of Shadows of Angmar before doing this quest in here. And at any point is Candaith saying this is the first time you meet, so this supports my idea that this is supposed to come after the other 3 books in the Shadows of Angmar playthrough. So it seems I can ride that idea a little bit longer, but we'll see how this ends. There is a hidden dale in the Trollshaws, far to the east and across the last reach, where the wisest of lore masters resides. Elrond is his name, and he is the master of Rivendell. It was in his house that my chieftain Aragorn was raised, and if any will know what must be done about the growing threat of Angmar, it will be he. You must make for Rivendell. I will tell you what I can of this last leg of your journey, Beriathan. Speak to me when you are ready. Absolutely, let me just equip the helm that we just got. Agility, Vitality, Critical Rating, awesome. And we are gonna get some extra Virtue XP as well. Oh, awesome. What else we got here? Spear Gambit initial damage. That's good. We can... let's say Fidelity. Let's get some extra ranks on Fidelity. And, alright, I think we are ready to continue now. Orcs have grown bolder and ferocious in recent days, but when you cross the last reach into the Trollshaws, you will face greater peril. Something has stirred the beasts of the wild into madness, and if it travels ahead of you, there may be great evil left in its wake. Luck be with you as you travel the road through the Trollshaws and begin the climb towards Rivendell. The path will not be easy, but Elrond must be told of what befell you in Cardolan and of the growing threat of Angmar.
Good luck to you. The road will be a long one and dangerous.
I have no doubt that that's the case. So, first of all, what do we have here? A Orc Waylayer. They will not even try to blackmail me somehow. I thought they were gonna ask for a bounty or something like that.
My friend, do we share the same road?
Yes, we do. Galasebdir. I have not seen you since you departed Sarch Vorn in the company of Halbarad, Beriathan. Yeah, the name did ring a bell. When he returned to us, he told us what befell Meneldir beneath Dorernil, and we kept wet for him, despite his past. But evil stirs in the land, and there is little time to mourn. What brings you into the Lonelands? You tell Galasebdir that you seek to bring word to Elrond of Rivendell that the Witch King and his servants have evil designs upon the realm of Angmar. The ranger thinks for a moment. I had planned to return to Thorinhat in the angle of Mithatel, Beriathan, but your journey feels to be of great import to me. I would accompany you on this quest, if you would have me. The road to Rivendell is like to be dangerous. You tell Galasebdir that his company would be welcome as you make for Rivendell. Then we are agreed. Lead on, my friend. And we are immediately transported past Barachin's camp. So, from, I think it was in year 9 Enith, well, we skipped a lot of terrain, basically. Now, Galasebdir also mentioned his intent was going to the angle. I have only run the angle once, and I cannot remember if he is an NPC there, but it wouldn't surprise me if the depths were teasing his role in a future questline in the angle. Keep in mind that Before the Shadow released after the angle, so of course they knew what they were doing, but I don't exactly remember right now about that. There it is again, Beriathan, among the trees just off the road. Do you hear that rustling? It sounds to me like something large, pretending to be small. A troll, to be certain. Is it beyond hope to think we might pass its notice?
He's seen us!
Yeah, that was too much. That was a lot of wishful thinking.
Another one!
Yeah, let them come. Not afraid.
I will be glad to see the Trollshaws, friend.
Yeah, I can't see why. Trolls are not known to be clever, Beriathan, and for the most part they do not hunt together. It may have been misfortune alone that we had to face two in succession, or perhaps the days grow darker and the rising threat of the shadow makes the creatures grow more bold. We should proceed. Soon we will need to climb, and the footing may become treacherous. Alrighty, our next stop now, the High Moor, just before the entrance to the valley. I have only been to Rivendell once in the company of my chieftain Aragorn, but I believe we are nearly there. Soon we will see the elves that guard the pass, and you will bring your warning of the shadow that rises in Angmar to Elrond.
I think we are close. Rivendell is near.
Of course, there's a lot of beasts in a way. Let's make quick work of them.
Something has troubled the animals here, as in Cardolan.
What could that be?
Should there not be guards here?
You tell me.
Something is not right.
Okay, we got the deed.
Could evil have at last found this hidden refuge?
Bregoleth!
Not if we maintain our vigilance, Dunedain. You saw no guards, but that does not mean Imladris is unguarded. It is good to see you again.
Same to you, Bregoleth. So nice meeting you here. You are welcome to Imladris, Beriathan, and my heart sinks to see you safe. Scouts saw you and Galasebdir of the Dunedain as you climbed to the High Moor, and they brought word to me and two others in the Vale as you neared the pass. I begged leave of Lord Elrond that I be the one to greet you. You did not make this journey to give him the tidings of Saruman I have already delivered, I trust? No. I see in your eye there is something else. I told you once we stood on the very precipice of danger, and the events of recent days have shown to me I was more right than I knew. Others await your arrival in Imladris. One such friend made haste to greet you at the entrance, but it seems he has not yet arrived. Look for him further along the path.
Your friend awaits further along the path.
And it seems, yeah, Galasebdir will not... well, I think he's given us some privacy to meet our friend. So let's go. Boromir of Gondor looks up at you with a pleased grin on his face. I see your own journey finds its end in the same northern dale as does mine, Beriathan. When I heard the elves calling among themselves that a man neared Rivendell in the company of a ranger, I knew that you and Meneldir approached. But where is he? Why does he tarry? Boromir sees something in your expression and falls silent. His journey too has ended, isn't that it? Is that it? Tell me what befell him as we walked, Beriathan. It is still a long way to the house of Elrond. Oh wait. I do want a picture of Boromir in front of the last homely house. I wasn't around in the early days of the game, but as far as I understand, before the release of the Shadows of Moria expansion or one of the later books in the Shadows of Angmar storyline, the Company of the Ring all hanged out outside the last homely house. The Aragorn, Boromir, the hobbits, but but that was later changed as the story needed to move on, and it was that the reason why the devs came up with the idea of having each region of Middle-earth be locked to a specific time, specific date. So for example, you have seen Estelin, that is December, early December I think it is, something along those lines. In Lothian in Cain Amrod, that is January, and when they made that choice, they moved the Company of the Ring to interior locations because the facing technology didn't exist back in the day. So the hobbits and Gandalf were moved to the guest rooms. Boromir, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli were moved to the guest house, and I think Bilbo was outside as well. I can't remember that, but bottom line, this is the only time, other than the Volume 2 prologue that is, that we'll get to see Boromir just right outside the last homely house, and that's why this needed a few pictures, if you don't mind. He was a good man and brave, Beriathan, and he died fighting evil. May each of us do the same if that is where our roads must lead. Elrond awaits. A nice bit of foreshadowing there.
The house is asking more questions than he has given me answers. Perhaps you will fare better. I will show you too.
Here it is. Beriathan. And here we have Gandalf. Once again, depending on how you are headcanoning this might be the first time your character meets Gandalf personally, or it might not. Once again, I think either one of the options is just as valid. That is, before the end of Before the Shadow, leading you to books 1, 2, and 3 of Shadows of Angmar, and then having this instance be the one that brings you to Rivendell. I will talk about that in just a moment. That is one option, and if that's the case, you met Gandalf at the Prancing Pony. But if your headcanon is that right after finishing Cardolan, Beriathan went, your character went to find Candaith at Weathertop, then this will be the first time that you meet Gandalf. I personally find this second option lacking, but I'm gonna talk about a little bit more about that in just a moment because we need to finish this. Yes, I know something of the road you took to get here, Beriathan, and some of the tidings you bring. Not all, no, but some. Folk of different lands have come to Rivendell in recent days, and I see in that a hopeful sign. Councils will be taken in the days to come, and decisions of great import must be made. But this is not my house. You should speak with Elrond, its master, and give to him the message you have brought across so many miles. I will see you again, Beriathan. I'll talk to Elrond. Welcome to Rivendell, Beriathan. This is a place of safety and of refuge, and you are welcome to take what rest you can within the Vale. But first, are you willing to tell me what brings you here? Many are the dangers you have faced to get here, and if your tale is like others I have heard of late, I believe they signify trouble ahead for the peoples of Middle-earth. You tell Elrond you have much to tell, and he nods, a thoughtful expression on his face.
Speak then of how you came to this place of safety, Rivendell, the last homely house east of the sea.
And you will remember...
But speak swiftly before the shadows deepen. From where did your road lead?
You will remember this is the dialogue. The first dialogue you hear when you select the intro in Mossword. We did talk about that a little bit on the first episode, but basically everything we have done up until now was just a big flashback. And I enjoyed that narrative device as well. I think it was very clever doing it that way. It gives you some sense of anticipation about where will your road lead. You know ahead of time that you would end in Rivendell, but at least for me, it wasn't all that clear that you were talking to Elrond. until I finished this. So I think that was a really great detail. I enjoyed that one a lot. You have woven quite a tale, Beriathan, and if you should wish it to be ended, none will judge you for it. But in your words I sense something else, indeed. Two somethings. I sense that you possess a desire for adventure, and it remains unquenched even after your trials in the wilderness. You could not remain in this peaceful haven for long before the desire compelled you once again to seek out and oppose great darkness. And I sense too that you wish to continue your work on behalf of the free peoples of Middle-earth. We enter a dangerous time, and mighty foes seek to return to the height of their powers, heights that were stolen from them in centuries past by great heroes. Are you to be one of these heroes in this age, Beriathan, I wonder? So rest then, for as long as you wish, and return to me when you are ready to resume your adventure. The shadow that rises in Angmar must be faced and defeated, and I fear the Black Riders that traveled Cardolan and pursued Frodo Baggins hither have not been defeated for good. One of their number has not been found. And with this, they immediately lead you into the conflict of Book 4, which is looking for the missing Nazgûl. Really? A might sword? Then I guess I'll take the javelin because it's the better option. And that was it. We completed the quest. We got a shimmering silver javelin that I'm gonna equip, of course. Fidelity is now level 2. Let me get that one on there as well. And as you see here, you are now, well, you could very well do the further adventures of Elladan and Elrond here to level up a little bit, because, well,
Hope is not in vain.
you need level 37. Well, the book 4 is level 37 and you are 5 levels below it. That's why this quest needed you to be level 32. So gaining 1 or 2 levels before starting book 4 would be a great idea, and the further adventures of Elladan and Elrond fill that gap quite nicely, providing you a lot of XP and missions that are really simple to do, but also filling in the gaps of the story that comes before book 4. We'll need to tackle this on the channel at some point. Maybe we will do this, and maybe this is not the end of the Before the Shadow playthrough. Basically what happens on those further adventures is you go with Elladan and Elrond here, looking for the missing Nazgûl throughout many different places in Middle-earth. There are some issues if you try to headcanon your character doing that alongside book 4, because, well, that's a long journey. I guess we'll need to talk about that one later. But the point is, if you need to gain some extra XP before you start book 4, my advice would be just that, do the further adventures of Elladan and Elrond here, and there are plenty of quests in Rivendell and the Trollshaws, but I don't think you will need to do them all. Now, this brings us actually to the end of our Before the Shadow playthrough, and there are many different things many different thoughts I have about this. First of all, as promised, I did the math of how much extra XP we got from our bonus items, and since we equipped the XP items until now, we earned a total of 119,963 experience points. And without the bonuses from these items, which total at 75%, we would have gotten 68,550 experience points, which means that if we hadn't equipped these XP boosts, we would have gotten 11,906 points towards level 31. And that means that we would have needed to grind a lot more than we did. It would have taken me 2 or 3 days to go from a early level 30 to level 32, doing some missions maybe and whatever. So it was not a big deal, but I'm still glad I equipped my XP items when I did. It didn't trivialize the content. If I had equipped them from the start of the playthrough, I would have out-leveled many areas faster than I did. That's one of the reasons I didn't want to use them. but when I did was the best moment. We just had a couple of quests missing, so we didn't overlevel as much, but it was still a very useful help for getting to level 32. That on one hand. On the other hand, the dialogue that we had with Gandalf right at the end of this instance, in my opinion, it's still left open enough that you can still roleplay these as having meeting Gandalf before, because the only thing Gandalf says is that he knows some of what purpose brings you here. That specific line of dialogue works a little bit better if you're thinking of your character finishing Book 3 of Before the Shadow and jumping straight to Book 4 of Shadows of Angmar. Because by thinking that you did Books 1, 2, and 3 of Shadows of Angmar after Before the Shadow, that means once again that you met Gandalf at the Prancing Pony, and if that's the case, why didn't you tell him about all that was happening in Cardolan? You know, that is a question that just occurred to me. I don't have an answer for that, and I think I will need to find an answer for that before I am 100% content with the headcanon I have, but I still stand with what I said, and that is that this storyline flows so much better if you go from the end of Before the Shadow, right when Halbarad tells you go and help some more people and reach level 32. At that point you should go to Bree, pick up Book 1 of Shadows of Angmar, and then do Books 1, 2, and 3. At the end of Book 3 of Shadows of Angmar, Halbarad in Estelin still tells you go to Rivendell, and the Lone Lands are along the way, so you just go there, meet Candaith, and experience this instance that we just did. You're immediately transported to Rivendell, and everything works out in the end, and that is what I personally prefer to think happened. So yes, I'm retconning my character, I'm retconning Beriathan a little bit, and adding everything that we have just done on this playthrough to be a prequel of sorts to my Shadows of Angmar playthrough. However, you cannot say, like I initially intended, that you will jump from the end of Before the Shadow to the prologue of Shadows of Angmar, being imprisoned by the Black Wolves. That wouldn't work, for the reason, well, what Goldberry said when we finished Sarch Vorn. That happened the same day Tom Bombadil rescued the hobbits. Now, I was reviewing the footage of my original Shadows of Angmar playthrough, and when you get that movie in the game of Tom Bombadil rescue the hobbits, you are just doing chapter 3 or 4 of Book 1, so it's still not a big deal thinking that after doing the first 3 books of Before the Shadow, you go and meet Aragorn in the Prancing Pony, and then do Books 1, 2, and 3 of Shadows of Angmar. There is some overlap in the timing of the early quests in there, but it's not a big deal in my opinion. And as I have said, it does work a little bit better because it gives your character the chance of meeting Aragorn and establishing a relationship with Aragorn, so that when you meet him in Rivendell, he's not just someone you've been hearing about since always, but someone that you actually know and got to respect. And the same thing goes for Gandalf, because if you jump straight from the end of Before the Shadow to Book 4 of Shadows of Angmar, then you feel like you're missing as well some background with Gandalf, some relationship with him. Because on one hand, you were doubting if Gandalf was still on the side of the Free Peoples or not. Halbarad tells you he still is, but it works so much better if you get the chance of actually meeting Gandalf and working with him for the benefit of the Free Peoples. So the fact that we understandably do not meet Aragorn during these Before the Shadow quests, and that we don't meet Gandalf even though we could have, makes me feel like I'm missing a big part of what made the first 3 books of Shadows of Angmar so special, and that's why in my headcanon, right after Halbarad tells Beriathan to do some more help, he tries to go to Bree, meets Aragorn in the prancing pony, and then you start doing everything else that we have just done. So that means if you are watching this for the first time and you want to continue with my Shadows of Angmar playthrough, my advice would be jump to episode 7 of my Shadows of Angmar playthrough, the volume 1 playlist, episode 7, and you can jump to around the 7-minute mark when we enter Aragorn's room in the prancing pony and pick up from there. On the other hand, if you are still not that comfortable with that idea, and if you still prefer having the end of Before the Shadow lead you to book 4 of Shadows of Angmar, then what you can do is go to episode 28 of my volume 1 playthrough and start watching at the 47 minutes 23 seconds mark approximately. That's when I get to Rivendell at that moment, and then you can just headcanon it that way, having this instance be the one that takes you to Rivendell. Those are my 2 options. I still prefer the former, but you do you, basically. With that out of the way, we are extending ourselves a little bit, but I would also like to talk a little bit more about my overall thoughts on Before the Shadow, Swampfleet and Cardolan. We have talked about many different things already, so I will be repeating myself a little bit in here. Not too much, hopefully, but basically, I did enjoy the storyline a lot. The first book in Swampfleet was setting up a lot of things, so it does take some time to actually get started. But when you find the sigils of the White Hand, and then Meneldir gives you this discussion of the wizards and everything, that's when the story starts picking up. But the meat of this storyline is, of course, when you meet Ecfrith and Boromir in Tharbad. That's when the story really picks up. That's when it starts teasing the future areas of the game, like Rohan and Gondor, but also teasing the storylines that the game will also provide to you, like the Shadows of Angmar storyline itself, and some other clues to other areas, some Easter eggs as well. So I do admire the epic of Before the Shadow for how meticulously it was crafted to be able to have all these references and all these callbacks and still be able to tell a cohesive story and provide a more modern experience to introduce players to the game, but still tie it up with what the game had done before and drop you right in the middle of the action. I cannot imagine how many rewrites this thing had, because the work on it really shows, and I do appreciate this storyline a lot. My only gripes with it, I have already shared with you, and if you headcanon your character, or if you take the time to play the epics, even if it's just the epics, but if you take the time to do books 1 to 3 of Shadows of Angmar, then you are given with the full experience, in my opinion, and it does work quite well. So the epic I did enjoy a lot. Even though we have reached the end of it, there are some epilogue quests that we are too low level to see, but that we might be able to witness at some point in the future. My intent is to keep playing with this Beriathan, maybe not upload the content to the channel, but keep playing with this Beriathan, leveling him up a little bit more, and eventually do some content with him that I missed initially. Things, for example, like the Wildwood, the Angle, the Yondershire. I can do them as a level 40 or 50 Beriathan, and they would be on an appropriate level range, which will be more fitting. I would also like, for example, to go back to Anúminas and do more quests in Anúminas, because on the original playthrough I skipped a lot of content in Anúminas. I was just so eager to continue with the Shadows of Angmar storyline that is so captivating that I overlooked those quests. But for the character, for Beriathan himself. Getting to Numinas is a big deal, and I think he would have spent more time in there, and I intend to fix that issue. So at some point, you will see more of this Beriathan. That's what I'm trying to say. As I have just told you in a minute, we might even see him in a couple weeks, or maybe less, doing the further adventures just to bridge the gap a little bit better between the end of Before the Shadow and the start of Book 4. That sounds like a great idea. But I do intend to do a couple more things with this Beriathan. But going back to my thoughts on Swampfleet and Cardolan, you already know what I think about the epic and some of the nitpicks I have with it that we have discussed on previous episodes, like the missed opportunity of meeting Gandalf at Sarch Vorn when he's crossing into the Shire. That would have been really cool. But for the most part, it's a very well written storyline. And some of the quest lines in Swampfleet and Cardolan complemented very well, especially Luilloth's scroll that ties directly into Sarch Vorn, and it's a converging point between the landscape quests and all the lore of the area with what the epic tells you, and I like that one a lot. The fact that we get one of my favorite Easter eggs in the game at the end of that instance is also a huge bonus for me. So it was a great area. The landscapes in Swampfleet and especially in Cardolan are so beautiful. I couldn't get tired of watching it. And you saw that. I took a lot of time just stopping there and admiring the views, taking some screenshots. They did also an amazing job crafting the new areas and how seamlessly they blend in with the surrounding areas that were created for the game across a long period of time, because Swampfleet and Cardolan connect to Bree, to the Shire, to the Lonelands, to the Trollshaws, to the Angol, to Eregion, to Enedwaith, so many different places. But the dev team was able to create those connections and make the landscape flow naturally from one point to the other, and that is also a huge win, in my opinion. The only gripes that I have with this expansion is, well, I've talked about them a little bit more, and you know about them, but a lot of quests have more back and forth than they should. Go and talk to this guy, come back here, then return there, defeat the boss, gather an item, come back and return. At times it was too much, and as I've said, that was, I think, also a callback to the initial design of the early areas of the game. But it's really jarring that some places, some quest lines, have this sort of archaic design in an expansion that was set to provide a more modern and streamlined experience. If any area had the promise of being linear, was this one. And don't get me wrong, as I said before, I appreciate having some things out of the way and the devs encouraging exploration, but the constant back and forth in some quest lines and the different paths that you could take, the disparity in level ranges for quests that all happened in the same place, and all the different quests that were just scattered around the map with no real guide to them, really makes the experience in Swampfleet and Cardolan to feel disjointed. Like, I don't know, where am I supposed to go? And on one hand, the epic is selling to you this sense of urgency, but on the other side, the landscape questing is just telling you, well, just do whatever you want and go wherever you want. And I feel there is a disparity in there. The lack of virtue XP, I also have an issue with. As we have seen here, our gear has done all the heavy lifting, and we were even able to get 5 virtues by the end of the playthrough. But I mean, the highest one that we have is confidence level 6 out of 16. We are not even halfway through with them. And if you had chosen Bree or Edith Luin or any other starting area, you could very well have all your 5 virtues at your current cap, and even be leveling up some additional ones to not lose the extra XP. That was my experience initially on my Volume 1 playthrough, so I really don't get how this expansion that was supposed to once again provide a more streamlined experience misses some of these key points in my opinion, and leaves player feeling sort of disjointed. And in the end, if you enjoy the lore, if you enjoy the world, and if you've been enjoying the game, this intro will work just fine. But I think maybe some of the players that are sitting on the fence about the game, this expansion does not 100% guarantee they will keep playing. I could see why some people might be put off by some of the choices made in this expansion. And as a matter of fact, just a few weeks ago on Reddit, I saw a post of someone that was just saying that I'm not finding the quests that will give me good gear. I am not leveling up my virtue XP. I feel like I'm making a mistake doing this. I should just go to Bree and level up in Bree and come back later when I am ready to do this content and not feel like I am missing something. So once again, it feels we are already too late for that. But who knows if at some point in the future the devs will get a chance of revisiting some of the choices they made on Before the Shadow and reconsider them. Streamline the quest flow a little bit more and take a look at the virtue XP rewards in here, because these factors are deterring to a relative considerable amount of players, and they can't be overlooked, in my opinion. But the storylines themselves are amazing. So my advice, as I have said, as I have told many other people, is if you're only interested in the storyline, but you are worried about gear and virtues and everything else, just go and play the old areas. They are still fine enough. They will provide you a good progression. They are really fun. And when you are around level 30, 40 or whatever you want, just go to Mossworth and start from there and do what piques your interest. Maybe pull up the wiki for the list of quests so that you can check which quest lines are worth pursuing, which locations you can visit to find extra quests. But if your only concern is the storyline, you can do that whenever, and the other areas can still provide you with a great starting point for the story. I hope I'm not sounding too negative on the expansion. I have liked it, and I might take another character through it in the future. But if I at any point create a character that I intend to take to endgame and do serious endgame content with, I might still start with the Shadows of Angmar playthrough, just because it will give you a better introduction to some of the systems that are still relevant at endgame. So it's also a matter of what kind of player you are and what are you looking for in the game. That might dictate which one of the two intros you do first, because in the end you can do them both. And I don't know, I wouldn't want to say this expansion failed, because it hit the mark on so many different aspects, but it also missed the point on some other crucial ones, at least in my opinion. So by the end of the playthrough, of this playthrough, I still have mixed feelings about it, but these mixed feelings are a lot more positive than what they were the first time I did this with my hunter, because some things that were indifferent for me the first time around, or that I didn't like at all, I found myself this second time going through it liking way more than I did initially. So even though I still have mixed feelings about the expansion, and I think it still needs some polish in some areas, I am glad I got to play it, and I think all LOTRO players should take a character and do this on level at least once. If you do this over leveled, it will take away from the experience, but doing this on level will let you know what this expansion offers, and that way you can decide if this is something that you want to repeat in the future or not, but give it a chance because there are still many things to like in it. I think I have already extended myself quite a lot, way more than I intended, so I'm gonna end it in here, but let me know down below in the comments what you think about this expansion. Do you share some of my opinions? Do you have a different one? I'm really looking forward to hear all your thoughts about it and starting a conversation. But for the time being, this has been all on today's episode of Citadelgard Adventures. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you on the next one. Until then, my friends, stay safe, take care, good luck to you all, and I will see you later.